Logo design. Not something every brand has to do very often, but one that, if done correctly, makes a massive difference on your sales and brand perception. My name is Stephen Pope, and I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. So on the screen here, you can see a bunch of different logo designs. So right now, my brand, My Amazon Guy, you can even notice in the bottom right of my screen right here, I've got a My Amazon Guy title screen, if you will, logo with red My and white Amazon Guy. And if you go to my website, it's kind of all over the place. I've got black with white. We really haven't settled on a brand feel for my agency specifically. And even the side hustle brand I own called Momster, we have all kinds of logos kind of out in the wild. I think it's pretty common to be in this situation. And so right now what I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to get a logo built for a sign for my wall, if you will, right over my shoulder. As I shoot these videos, I just want to reinforce, the My Amazon Guy logo. It'll be right over the top of my shoulder right here where my hand is. And so we're thinking about, what would be the best way to do that? And so we've had this discussion. On the screen now, you can see different logo types that we've just generally been shooting out there. So there's been a conversation on whether there should be an underlined word, whether we should have vertical, alt text, or whether we should have a stacked name. Now, I have some progression on where we took this logo design, and I've got some ideas and tips to share. And although this is a logo for an agency to help Amazon sellers, I think a lot of what I have to say on this is going to be pertinent to brand and retailers as well. So the first thing I would say is, does it pass the squint test? So if you reduce your logo down to 50 pixels, and this is pretty close to 50 pixels, can you read it? And most of these don't pass that test, in my opinion. The one that really shines is D2. So that's the one that we started to lean towards because of that. We also had debates about font and spacing, and so a lot of conversation was led around that. One thing I can tell you for sure, that if you have a logo built, do not split any word between two lines. It makes it unbearable to read and hard to use. So I highly recommend that you keep a single word without breaking it in half or anything like that. Unless there's some really clever design reason to violate that rule, I would make that a hard and fast rule. I also can, I don't think you should have things in all caps typically, unless it's for a very particular readability. So I think this is a font that's not all caps, but it looks like it's in all caps. But nonetheless, I don't think that it's very beneficial to be in all caps typically, because it could come across as yelling or whatnot. All right, so we went through some of this logo design. Here's kind of a next iteration. I know you can't see quite of all of B3 here. And so we decided that, we need 3 lines on this to make it easier to read. And so on A1, A2, and A3, the only difference between these 3 is the spacing of the vertical spacing. And the one with the yellow line just doesn't look as good, so we kind of ruled that out. And we resulted down to this. And now the question is how much vertical spacing is needed? And A1 was a pretty quick rule out. We felt like we needed a little bit more spacing. And so the question was between A2, A3, and A4 here. And I think pretty split decision on this. We're leaning towards A3 or A4 at this point, and we haven't made the final decision. But once we do, we'll print out the sign, throw it on my wall here for some of my logo representation as I shoot almost a daily video or thereabouts for the My Amazon Guy channel. So there's a bunch of good articles I like on logo design. This is probably one of my favorites. We'll pull up a second one as well. We'll go through a couple of these, give you some insights. And I'll put these links in the video description. These are the do's and don'ts of logo design. So they suggest putting it in black and white first and then worrying about color last. Get the design aspect down first, which is kind of interesting to think about. Don't add too many colors. So, we're going black and white, which is interesting to think about. So sometimes simple is the way to go. Do disconnect images from text. So do it like on the left. Don't do it like on the right. Don't pick the wrong font. So sometimes fonts can make it hard to read. So the one on the left here is much easier to read than that one. Honestly, it looks like that's an IE if you pick that font versus just a simple E. Do drop the shadows. It's much easier to read the simplified version. Logos should not be crazy design over the top. Don't use any clip art. So the one on the left, that one's obviously been designed by a designer. The one on the right, not so much. Avoid any unnecessary words. So you want simplified like the left. Can't even read the right. It's so complicated. So that I think is kind of useful. Second article kind of goes into more, instead of do's or don'ts, it kind of gives a little bit more presentation on like what you want to put behind a logo, what makes a good logo. So, IBM, ABC, UPS, those are very, very well-known logos. They've got national branding, obviously. Talks about how to make a design brief or what you're looking for. So if you send something to a designer, how to research and reference it, how to sketch and conceptualize it. So sometimes you need what I like to call a napkin wire. And what I mean by napkin wire is you literally take a piece of paper and just draw something of what you're thinking about, right? So, hey, I want my Amazon Guy logo to be 3 lines and centered, something like that, right? And I'll draw a square around it. I'm not a designer, as you can tell, but something like that. You get the idea with the scribble, the napkin wire, give that to the designer, and then they mock it up. So very easy to give your interest on what direction you want to go if you do it that way. Bunch of case studies in this article and how it makes it simple, memorable, timeless, versatile, and appropriate. Nike logo is a great case example. That Amazon logo, very similar. You got McDonald's as memorable. You got timeless as underground. Honestly, never heard of that brand. Don't know what that's about. Versatile, WWF. Is it one color? Yep, they've got one color. Reverse color, size and postage stamp, and large as a billboard. Does it work for all of them? Yes, it does. Appropriate, Toys R Us, because it's built for kids. It's a fun logo. It makes sense. I think this is probably one of my favorite logos on the list because of how memorable it is and appropriate. How much does a logo cost? Well, honestly, you can get a logo built for probably $20 on Fiverr or less. But realistically, you should probably spend $100 to $200 and get it from a professional who would understand the context, native English speaker. I think it's absolutely worth dropping a couple $100 on a logo. So I'll put both these links in there. This is just kind of a food for thought on what you should do for your logo. Your logo does not have to go onto your product packaging to sell on Amazon, but frequently many sellers do that to reinforce their brand. So if you're going to go that route, then changing your logo at a later point will be very difficult. So that's why you should invest and think carefully about what you're going to do with it. If you're not going to put it on any packaging, then your logo, kind of like mine, which is in digital form, can change willy-nilly anytime you want. And your logo can be changed within Amazon's A+ contents, and it can be changed in other locations too. One note I'll give you is it is possible to put your logo if you're selling in clothing categories. So here's the Levi's logo. And when we go to one of their listings, you're going to notice that the brand name, well, not since I last checked. All right, so this brand name right here on some Levi pages actually has the brand logo instead of the word Levi's. And so there are some special things you can do with if you're in clothing categories specifically. This is not available to pretty much any other category. It's literally just clothing from my understanding. I was able to replicate this for 2 clients myself in clothing. And so it's very easy to do. You just submit a ticket and they put it in. I think the sizing of the logo there is very, very weird though. Other than that, A+ contents where you'd put a logo. So you'd put the logo down here, of course, from the manufacturer section. But really doesn't go too many other places within Amazon. So it's not critical that you have it present. But I would recommend it. I'd recommend spending some time designing your logo for long term and give that some thought. If you have any thoughts on what should go in a logo and what shouldn't, don't hesitate to leave a comment on this video to open up a discussion on it. And if you need help with any of your design needs, My Amazon Guide has design in-house, and we can help build out A+ content for $500, one of our most popular services. We have lots and lots of examples of A+ content that we've designed, and you can see uses of logos and all that good stuff here as well. Finally, please feel free to subscribe and like to our video series. We post about one every day on all subjects related to selling on Amazon. And if you can't find an answer to a question that you have on how to do something in Seller Central, leave a comment on the video. We do videos by request, and we appreciate your commentary and your feedback. Thanks so much.